Historic. Princess Leonor arrives in Denmark, Spain watches Copenhagen welcome. Spain expected a quiet visit. Denmark prepared a simple welcome. But what unfolded in Copenhagen stunned both nations. Not just a royal trip. Not just a handshake. This was history in motion. And it left millions asking, what does this mean for the future crown of Spain? 1. The arrival. Her Royal Highness Princess Leonor of Spain stepped off the royal plane onto Danish soil. The air was crisp. The sky above Copenhagen carried a soft autumn light. Crowds gathered along the streets, Spaniards who had traveled across borders, Danes who came out with flags of red and white, and royal watchers from all over Europe. For Spain, this was more than a state visit. It was a test. Could their young princess, just months after completing rigorous military training, step into the international spotlight as the woman who will one day inherit the crown? The cameras flashed. The first glimpse of Leonor walking down the steps of the plane, poised, graceful, her Spanish sash across her shoulders, it became an instant image of history. But the moment she touched the ground of Denmark, something subtle happened. The crowds did not cheer as one nation for another. They roared together, as if welcoming a queen of Europe. And here is the question that began to spread. Was this simply diplomacy, or something more personal, more human, unfolding before the world's eyes? 2. Spain watches, Denmark responds. Back in Spain, television networks carried every frame. Elderly citizens in small towns paused their daily routines to watch Leonor's arrival. Young students whispered in classrooms, following the updates on their phones. And inside Zarzuela Palace, her parents, King Felipe and Queen Letizia, watched closely. Felipe with the steady gaze of a king evaluating the steps of his heir. Letizia with the protective eyes of a mother, knowing her daughter was now walking into a world stage where every gesture would be judged. Meanwhile, in Denmark, the royal family extended one of the warmest welcomes in recent history. Official statements used words like partnership, shared future, and strengthened bonds. Yet what truly caught attention was not the speeches, but the unspoken warmth, the way Danish crowds lifted Spanish flags alongside their own. Why did Denmark embrace Leonor so deeply? Was this a sign of politics? Or was it a recognition of something greater, a connection between two royal houses that history may look back on as destiny? 3. The symbolism. Leonor did not come empty-handed. Every step of her attire was chosen with care. Her outfit blended Spanish royal elegance with small nods to Danish culture. Even her jewelry was symbolic, a pair of earrings once worn by her mother on her own first international visit, a signal that Leonor was walking not just for herself, but for the legacy of her family. And symbolism mattered. The Danish press analyzed her presence not as a mere visit, but as a diplomatic bridge. She stood at Graston Castle, where generations of Danish royals gathered each summer, and her very presence seemed to whisper, the future of Europe may be written here. What does it mean when the heir to Spain's throne is welcomed not just as a guest, but almost as family in Denmark? 4. The human side. Cameras caught moments beyond the protocol. Children waving flowers toward Leonor. Her bending slightly to accept them with a genuine smile. Elderly citizens, some with tears in their eyes, calling out her name. These were not just diplomatic gestures. They were human moments. And they reminded the world that beneath the titles, the uniforms, and the ceremonies, Leonor is still a young woman, stepping bravely into history. Spain saw their future queen. Not behind palace gates, but walking among people in a foreign land, connecting across cultures. And this raised another powerful question: can a princess truly belong to two nations at once? 5. The tension in Spain. Of course, not everyone in Spain watched with simple pride. Political voices began to debate. Was Leonor's visit a celebration of unity, or a dangerous hint of divided loyalties? Some commentators whispered about history. Centuries of alliances and rivalries between Spain and Denmark. What role might Leonor play in rewriting that story? And within Spain's royal family, there was quiet tension. King Felipe had always carried the weight of duty, his reign defined by stability. But now the spotlight shifted to his daughter. And he knew, sooner than the world expects, Leonor will no longer be just his daughter. She will be Spain's queen. The tension was not of disapproval, but of recognition. The world was seeing Leonor not as a child of the palace but as a sovereign in waiting. And that realization carried both pride and a bittersweet sense of change. 6. The ceremony. The highlight of her visit came during a formal ceremony in Copenhagen's Royal Hall. Flags of Spain and Denmark stood side by side. Speeches were made. The Danish crown prince spoke of shared destiny. Leonor, with steady composure, delivered words in flawless Spanish, then repeated a phrase in Danish that stunned the room. It was not just translation. It was connection. And the hall erupted in applause. Observers noted the way the Danish royals looked at her, not as a guest but as a peer. That moment spread across European television. Leonor, speaking, welcomed not as future royalty of Spain alone, but as part of Europe's next generation of sovereigns. 7. The future. As night fell on Copenhagen, Leonor's visit transformed from news into legacy. Analysts on Spanish television asked, was this the first chapter of a new royal era? Young Spaniards flooded social media with messages of pride. In Denmark, commentators spoke of a new warmth between two royal houses. And across Europe, whispers grew louder. Could this visit signal a deeper union between Spain and Denmark, through more than politics alone? Later in this video, you'll see why many believe Leonor's journey to Copenhagen was not just about diplomacy, but about the shaping of a love story that could alter the balance of Europe's monarchies forever. And so, as the cameras turned off, as the streets of Copenhagen quieted, the truth remained clear: this was no ordinary royal visit. This was history. This was a princess arriving not as a guest, but as a figure who will one day change the map of Europe. Spain watched. Denmark welcomed. And the world waits for what comes next.